Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network, which there was no game to react to this week.
How about
Brian,
that?
how did you spend your bye week Sunday? What else were you watching?
What did I do? I was interested in
Rangers Game 6, obviously.
Yeah,
Shout out to the Rangers getting to the World Series.
Congratulations, Rangers. Yeah, for 105.3 The Fan from all of us. I went to the game on Friday and had my heart ripped out. And I was trying to equate it to other moments in sports growing up here in Dallas where I've had my heart ripped out of, for games. The Tony Romo drop snap in Seattle during the playoffs was one. The Dez catch in 2014 was another one where I felt like I got my heart ripped out. Jackie Smith dropping the touchdown. Man, you're going way, way back with that one. Dwight Clark's catch in the NFC Championship game. I'm an old guy. I'm 59 years old, so I've seen a lot of getting my heart ripped out of games. But, man, that was to be – and it went so – Bobby, and you know the rules. I was watching in the press box, and there's no cheering.
Yep.
And so you're sitting there, and literally the ball leaves the bat from Altuve, and I'm like, man, they just hit a 3-run homer to win this thing. I mean, they just basically the Rangers had a shot in the bottom of the ninth, but I mean, at that point, you're just like you were just so devastated. So, being a Dallas sports fan, there's other people around the world, around the country that I'm sure have other moments. I just hope you never have to go through that because I feel like in my life I've gone through a few. Been through a lot of good, successful stuff, but then also had that one was pretty tough because I've really grown invested into the Rangers.
Yeah.
I just have, and I'm happy that they made the World Series, but it gave me an opportunity to kind of that week to kind of just focus on baseball the whole week, which I really, really enjoyed. I'm now ready to kind of get back into the Cowboy mode, the swing of things. You got to run of games, and then next thing you know, we're going to wake up. It's already damn week 8, and you're going to wake up and it's Thanksgiving, and you're going to wake up again, and they've got to win this game to win the division, and so we're going to be in that mode here before very long.
Yeah, look, I think that, you did spend your bye week productively because you had a really fantastic segment, which I heard you do it on 105 to the Fan. We'll touch on it next segment a little bit in addition to some of the things the Cowboys can expect after the bye. But you studied what Cleveland did against San Francisco, I think that's really interesting.
That was a lot of fun. And this morning, I'm going to take the opportunity. I've got to look at the Rams tonight for future shows for you and I, and then for 105.3, and then also for Cowboys Break, which I always do. I'm interested to see what Minnesota did. What was fascinating was the numbers the success that they had throwing the football. Minnesota had throwing the football. Kirk Cousins had when they weren't blitzed, but then when they got blitzed, I think he was 7 of 12, and they forced a turnover on him. But it's funny. I'm interested to see it. It doesn't appear like that San Francisco got a whole hell of a lot of pressure because when they didn't blitz, he was dead perfect. And usually San Francisco tries to get you with their 4-man rush.
Yeah.
But I'll study that. I'll study that game and then kind of get an idea. You got to get a game plan together. I already watched the Cleveland game, which gave me an idea about how they play with the robber down in the box to kind of take away the crossers. Not in the box, but outside the box to kind of take away those crossers and stuff like that. Might be a good way to play the 49ers going forward.
Well, if the NFL playoffs started today, who are the Dallas Cowboys facing, Brian? That would be the San Francisco 49ers if the playoffs started today.
Is that the case?
Yep. Yeah, because the 49ers have been bumped down to the number 3 team. Dallas is at 6. So you'd be on the road in San Francisco if the playoffs started today, which is very poetic. We're going to talk here in this first segment, though, about Jerry Jones. He interviewed with 105 through the Fan. Had some interesting things
Is it real quick? Is that Philadelphia, Detroit?
It's Philly. I think it's Philly, Detroit is what it is. Detroit's got a tiebreaker right now.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
And so
you play all these teams, man. It's crazy. You're going to play the 49ers. You're going to play the Lions. You're going to play the Dolphins. You're going to play the Bills. You're going to play Seattle. who else we got in this thing you're going to play that's probably going to be – there's some tests. I mean,
Miami and Buffalo, AFC side.
Exactly. You failed the test against San Francisco. You got to find a way to win these other ones, though.
It's interesting you say that. We'll dive into what Jerry said. No, you're good. We'll dive in specifically to what Jerry had to say about the trade deadline here in a sec, which is coming up on Halloween, because there was, I think, an interesting comment there. But it was funny when we asked him, like, the first thing where it's like, hey, tell us about bye week assessment.
You guys did a good job on that. Good question.
Thank you. How many... What was it? Was it less than 10 seconds before he said San Francisco?
He did say San Francisco.
If you have any question, I know some people thought we overhyped how much the Cowboys really cared about that and everything else. If you have any question about is this team still obsessed with San Francisco, he was just asked about bye week reflection, and Jerry couldn't get 10 seconds into it without saying the 49ers name. That's still a team that they are really focused on. And he even said, I thought it was interesting, he said we're in the upper echelon. I've never heard Jerry say anything like this. We're in the upper echelon. I'm not saying we belong on the same field as the 49ers. It's like, man, that team is in the Cowboys' head.
Yeah. And maybe Philadelphia might be in their head, too, here in the next couple of weeks. You know, we'll study them. Philadelphia's done a great job with the personnel that they've had. They've had some games where they haven't been perfect in a lot of areas, but they find a way to be 6-1. You know, maybe they struggle in a game. It's my saying I have all the time, and I need to get a T-shirt made. This NFL is a strange lady.
Strange lady.
It's a strange lady. 1 in 5 teams are beating teams that are looking like playoff teams, and you know it's just been really, really crazy. And that's what you endure throughout a season. You'd love to have the Arizona game back, and you'd love to have a better effort against the 49ers. I think the Cowboys going forward feel like that they can compete, that they're built to compete against the Eagles. But we'll see in a couple weeks how that game plays out for him.
So that was just interesting right there that he mentioned San Francisco a couple different times. I just think that's relevant to point out because of, the fact that they clearly still have a mental hurt of that. If you are on track to play San Francisco again, that's still clearly on the mind of your owner and general manager that, hey, I don't know how much we stack up against this football team. But he did have a lot to say on the trade deadline. We were able to kick around a lot there because there have been a lot of national pundits suggesting that Dallas could be one of the active teams at the NFL trade deadline, which is really funny because the NFL trade deadline for years was essentially nothing, Brian. Like, it's not the MLB trade deadline or the NBA. Now you actually get some activity, usually not on deadline day, but usually the week leading up. You'll see some names. Philadelphia already went out, got Kevin Byard, who's a really good player, really good safety.
Can I give you a little scouting report? My gang of 7 guys gave me a little report on Byard and what to kind of expect from him. I just thought it was interesting because I asked about him specifically, of course. One of my guys said, and this was, I'm taking the phrase or the wording from 2 or 3 different guys, but they say the same thing about him. The thumbnail scouting report about him is he's been good, not as great in coverage as he's been in previous seasons, but still good starter and a plus player both versus run and pass. So this looks like a deal where they didn't give up a whole hell of a lot, and they got a guy that's legitimate, was a Pro Bowl player, always around the ball, maybe struggling a little bit more in pass coverage than he did in the past, but still a run good defender that tackles well. That sounds like to me a good addition to your defense that might be struggling a little bit in some of the areas that they want to address.
Byard was a guy who I believe, so he got drafted in 2016, early 3rd round or late 2nd round, one of them. I just remember that because that was one of the highest players we've seen in recent NFL history who didn't go to the combine. He was a combine snub and went incredibly high. But Byard is a guy who, that since he entered the league, I believe he's 2nd in the NFL in interceptions behind Xavier Howard. So he'll take the ball away. He's intercepted Dak a few times. And so he's somebody who absolutely is a real needle mover, I think, for Philadelphia. So that's concerning. But in terms of Dallas going after the deadline, Jerry had some interesting things to say about it. And I don't know, I'm curious if this is the guy that you worked with, this perspective he has. He says the initiation of an opportunity to make a trade at this time that would help us principally has to start over on the other end. So what Jerry's saying is, I'm not picking up the phone. I'm not working the phone. Something's basically got to fall into our laps. Is that a little bit of a change up from what you've known in the past in terms of Jerry and the way that he approaches these things?
Bobby, I was on the break today, and I made a passionate plea. We each had an opportunity to kind of talk about the comments that you guys were able to get from Jerry. And the comment that I made was, I wish the old Jerry Jones would come back. I wish the old Jerry Jones would come back that was willing to step up, do whatever he had to do. There was a time, and I addressed this. I said this. 20 years ago, when Jerry was wheeling and dealing, 25 years ago, whatever, when Jerry was wheeling and dealing picks, I was part of the scouting staff that we did the Joey Galloway trade. Roy Williams. There was things along the way we did, and I feel like that if we scared Jerry off from making trades like that, he did the Amari Cooper one, but he did that because he saw that receiver by committee wasn't working. But, that's a good evaluation. Had to go out, had to give up a first-round pick, had to make that happen. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it on, this is the third platform I'm going to say it on. I think Jerry Jones is better equipped with better information than when we were scouting for him. I think his pro department today is better than the pro department with myself and others that were doing it. Not that, they were I think with Jerry standing at I say this at the craps table with holding the dice and pushing chips around with me was probably a gamble. With his current group, with the leadership from Will and and Alex Loomis and Henry Schroka and those guys over there, I think they're better equipped to know the league and know the type of players that they need. And if Jerry wants to go out and get a player and spend a premium pick to go get a player that could help him, I think he's better equipped for that now than maybe 20 some odd years ago when I was sitting in that chair for him. And I would hope that he would, be that guy that I was dealing with in, the early 2000s that was willing to look around, listen to the information, say, let's go, let's do this. I don't know. To me right now, I don't know what's holding him back. And I want to believe he's making decisions on this, but I also want to think that maybe Steven and Will and others are influencing him. Hey, Jerry, we don't have to do this. We don't have to make a move for a linebacker. We don't have to make a move for a corner. We don't have to go make a move for another position player. We don't need this. And that's Jerry's going to go, okay, if that's kind of how we feel. And Jerry never wants to be in a position where he can't negotiate. So he's going to say, I need somebody to come to me, and, they're kind of hat in hand and want to do that. But I miss the old Jerry Jones and to be honest with you, Bobby, I think there's a side of him that still wants to be that Jerry Jones of the early 2000s and go and do this. I don't know how you can't look at the NFL right now, the landscape of it, and not say this thing is wide open right now. This, one or two moves at the midway point. And I used the example of the Texas Rangers and Chris Young, first-year general manager for the Rangers. His team was in first place basically the whole entire season through the trade deadline, and he went out and got Chapman, and he went out and got Montgomery, and he Scherzer. He lost DeGrom. He went out and made trades to try and make his team better. And the players he traded for right now are one of the reasons why he's sitting now in the World Series, because of some of the moves that he was willing to make. And his team was in first place the majority of the season, up until the very last month of the season, very last weeks of the season, they were in first place. And I wish that was Jerry Jones again. And I don't know if Will's holding it back, and I don't know if Steven's holding it back. And I don't mean that any disrespect to either of those guys. But if going out and making the right move, and the right move would be from what your pro department told you your right move is. Because these guys are super qualified for this job. They're much more qualified to make a great decision than maybe when I was doing it. And I'm not trying to just pour me and slam me or what, but no, I believe these guys are really good at evaluating the league. And they've proven that with the way they've built their roster. I admire the way they build their roster. but I also would like to see them just, go out, and people will say, well, they tried to do it where they gave up a minimum pick for Gilmore. Okay. They gave up a million pick for Cooks. Okay. But if you could find, if somebody in the pro department can evaluate somebody they can go get, that could be that difference maker, man, they owe it to themselves and they owe it to this fan base. They owe it to this fan base to go out there and try and go win this division, this conference, and potentially a Super Bowl. Because this thing, to me, Bobby, is wide open. It really is. I don't care. Philadelphia's a good team. San Francisco slammed you. Maybe a bad game against San Francisco. Maybe next time it'll be different. But maybe if you have another player or two that might make a difference in that game, like they have, then you might have a different result.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And obviously, you're not arguing for make a move just to make a move, but do your due diligence. It's one of their favorite lines: due diligence. Just do your due diligence.
Yes, I'm completely trusting Will McClay and the pro scouting department here. Completely. I just think when we were throwing multiple ones around like they were manhole covers, just don't nickels or whatever, we're just throwing them around, like it was spare change. Jerry was rolling the dice, and he was rolling the dice. We were right about in free agency with Leroy Glover and Dan Campbell and some guys like that, but there were some other ones along the way. There's some trades. We never should have given up 2 1s for Joey Galloway. Never should have done that. 1-1 was sufficient. We didn't need to give up 2, but we did it. When Jerry was willing to do it, and I just wish we could get back to that guy that might be more willing to do this, because I think he might be getting influenced not to do it.
It is a fascinating dynamic.
Sure somebody's going to come after me for saying that.
Nah. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, Brian, and yours is more informed than most people who would be sitting here talking about it. You are listening to the Love the Star.
You did. That's my point. Yeah, that's my point. I saw him look around the room after getting all the information, saying, "Let's go, let's do this." I've seen him do that, and I just see this whole thing is so open. And I'm sorry, I interrupt you there, Bob.
No. I 100% agree. I'll be interested to see. I'll be interested to see how much his word matches his actions too. Because they've
you
said
asked
before.
him the question. You asked him the question, and he seemed open to the idea. But somebody's going to have to call. If they identify somebody that they can be a difference maker, and they have to give up a premium pick, I trust these guys to do it. I trust these guys. You know what? They weren't wrong about Amari Cooper. It just became personal. You know what I'm saying? They weren't wrong about Amari. It just became personal. That's the issue.
Yeah, they let their money get mad a little bit there.
A little bit.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, one of the other things that Jerry had talked about with us was he had mentioned where the Cowboys stand right now. And I think, look, if you would have told people at the beginning of the year, hey, at the bye week, you're 4-2, then I think people go, okay, you have 3 road games in the first 6 weeks against playoff teams from last year. You've got Belichick on the schedule. You've got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets defense.
There you go.
And you go, all right, 4-2 doesn't sound so bad. And yet you can't find anybody who's really super excited about 4-2 now after losing to a bad Cardinals team or a Cardinals team that you're definitively better than and getting drubbed by the San Francisco 49ers. People are not happy with that. But Jerry Jones told us, he said, I look at where we are, 4-2. I'll take it. I think most people would. But he says, we have better football ahead of us. I don't doubt that at all. No one should doubt that. We're getting better. So Jerry's an eternal optimist. So his comments aren't totally unsurprising, but there are areas of the team where I think it is reasonable to not only just say, hey, they could get better. I think it's reasonable to expect they're going to get better.
Yeah.
And so I just want to kick around some of those with you real quick. The first one to me, Brian, is red zone efficiency. And I know it's been a huge plague on it, but you've pointed it out before. Penalties, boneheaded plays, poor execution, a lot of just silly drops. My goodness, it feels like there have been a few drops. Some of it's been technicalities. CeeDee Lamb's touchdown was 20 yards instead of 19, so that doesn't go to your red zone efficiency. So it puts you in a little bit of a tough spot from that sense. But I think all those things eventually, it feels like to me, Brian, that in the red zone, they've had a statistically significant number of boneheaded plays break their way. And when that regresses to the mean, I think you're naturally going to see those numbers go up.
Yeah, I think that to me, a lot of what's going on up front, the play caller, some design, I feel like, though, really poor execution, missed blocks, guys getting, point of attack, getting compressed, trying to pull guys, not getting it to the second level, running back, trying to bounce it, can't get outside, has to kind of cut it back, clogged in the middle. You mentioned the drops in the red zone. Dak Prescott not pulling the ball 2 different times. He should have 3 rushing touchdowns right now. He's got 1, I believe, right now, right?
Yep.
And then he should have had 2 others on plays that if he pulls the ball, there's decision making, there's execution, there's decisions on what plays to run, there's drops, just take your pick of what could hamper a red zone attack, and Dallas has lived them all.
And that'll balance.
There's not one time, and I think when you watch the Cowboys, I think the offensive line, the one thing they're banking on, Bobby, is that this offensive line, who has not played together all that much, will get better as the season progresses. They've had moments where they've tried, like a great example last week when we talked about the Chargers game. And they're running the ball at the point of attack, and if you have the all-22, the capability to watch, you would see with your own eyes, they're trying to pull guys. They're trying to win at the point of attack. They're not getting the combination blocks. They're not getting guys to the second level. Pollard is having to try and find space when there's no space. All of a sudden, you get pullers that get compressed. You get tight ends that get compressed. You get a backside tight end that's pulling that doesn't block anybody 2 straight plays when he's pulling. Those are the kinds of things you cannot have happen when you're trying to run the ball, and especially when you're trying to run the ball in the red zone. You have guys like a Biotish completely whiff on a block. Tyler Smith completely whiff on a block. Zach Martin, he's playing on one leg, hopefully a little bit better this week with the bruise he's dealing with on the thigh, the quad bruise that he's dealing with. Hopefully that's better for him after, get a little bit of rest. Tyron Smith, has not been as great as Tyron Smith's been in the past. But it's when you grade these offensive linemen, 65 plays. If you have 3 bad plays, you've probably done a pretty damn good job. But if you grade 65 plays and 8 of them are bad for each individual guy, there's your problems.
Yep.
There's your problems not only in the field, but when you get down in the red zone.
Yeah, and it's important to note that one of the best red zone players in the NFL over the last 2 years was Dalton Schultz. And Schultz left. You've got young tight ends who are still trying to figure out the little nuances of getting that little bit. They got to catch the ball. They've got to learn the nuances of route running when the field gets tighter, the space gets smaller. Yeah. As they continue to play, they're going to pick those things up. So naturally, as that group gets more experience, that's going to improve as well. So I do think the red zone will get better. Is it going to be top of the league? Probably not. No. But they can be better than 26th, which is where they are. I think that's reasonable to assume.
I think you make a great point about Dalton Schultz. And the great example is with Dalton Schultz in the playoff game against Tampa. Dak sprints to his left, or he's flush left, and he's kind of looking. Things get kind of compressed. I'm using the word compressed a lot here tonight. But things get squeezed, compressed, to the outside. And then what does Dalton Schultz do? Instead of working towards the sideline in the corner of the end zone, he works back to the inside, more towards the goalpost. And what does Dak do? Dak throws him a ball between the corner and the safety right there. That's one of the best.
They knew each other.
Yeah, one of the best ones ever was Jason Witten with Tony Romo. How many times have we seen Jason Witten body somebody up, get the ball, or find space when everything looks really, really cluttered? And these tight ends could be a huge weapon down there with that way of attacking it.
The next issue, I got 3 for you. The next one that I think is just naturally going to improve. And by the way, I'll spoil it now. None of these are on defense. I think they can improve on defense, but I don't think anything just naturally is going to get better on defense. They just have to be better. You got to hope for some things to click there.
Were you surprised that Jerry mentioned about the run? The first concern from him on your conversation this morning, the first thing he mentioned was playing run defense.
Nope, it doesn't surprise me at all because that's what McCarthy says every week, and so I'm sure that's what McCarthy's telling him in those meetings.
No question.
Because McCarthy tells it to us every single week. He goes, we know teams are going to try to run the ball on us.
There you go. Well,
so that didn't surprise me. Number 2, big plays on offense, and it's because they just have none. Again, it's a statistical unlikelihood that will continue. I know you got a chance to go back and watch the tape against the Chargers. Yeah. That to me was by far the most comfortable Dak Prescott's looked throwing the ball this year, and that was the route concepts looked different to me. It looked like they were doing some different things. And so I think that they're going to take the bye week. They're going to investigate that stuff. They're going to see on tape what we saw on tape and go, okay, we got some stuff we got to take advantage of. And that's naturally going to lead to more big plays. Yeah,
give Dak some credit because I know on my show on 105.3 The Fan, the G-Bag Nation, Gavin Dawson and I have this discussion all the time about one of his big things is Dak has to have the offensive line and the running game to have success. This was a game where they didn't have running game success and the offensive line was not great. Dak Prescott did a really nice job in this past week or this before the game before the bye where he was able to move in the pocket, throw the football, generate some offense that way. So if you always think that Dak has to have the line and the running game to be successful, that game last week was one of the reasons why you would say, well, that's not always the case.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, they're going to self-scout. They're going to take some time away. And I think that what they'll see on tape that they were able to do against the Chargers, and look, the Chargers have their own problems that you were able to take advantage of, but I do think it's going to show up on tape to them of, okay, he looks more comfortable here. This looks more like the quarterback that we've known. And Dak didn't play the greatest game of all time, but he was really good. And it was something where he looked more like himself.
He was better than his line and his running game. And that's where a lot of criticism has been about Dak Prescott. If you talk about the interceptions, though, the games, was he good enough to carry the team? Well, he was good enough to carry the team the other day.
Yeah.
He had a receiver that was probably having one of his worst games of his career, and that was Michael Gallup.
Boy, that's another discussion for us to get into this week. Is Michael Gallup?
He just kept feeding him the ball, and Gallup kind of let him down, and so we'll see.
And then the last one here, Brian, and you kind of touched on a little bit already, but it's the offensive line. I think that there's no position group in the NFL and the game of football that's more reliant on the continuity and the consistency and just those sort of things to be able to get your cohesion together than the offensive line. And so just by the very fact that what we're probably talking about, I haven't even looked at it yet, but 120 snaps this group has played together now of Tyron, Tyler, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele. It's 120 snaps. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to know. It's not the Terrence Steele, Zach Martin, they just know exactly how to work on those combo blocks together and do different things. That's going to take time for everybody to come together. And so while...
Boy, I worried about that too. My biggest... Bobby, when we do these shows, my biggest concern, offensive coaching staff turnover and then this offensive line. You're going to get the 5 guys. Are you going to get the right 5 guys? That's you're absolutely right. That's... you haven't played a whole hell of a lot of snaps together, but man, they have got to figure this thing out before we get to Thanksgiving. They've got and maybe they're going to be challenged at Philadelphia here. They're going to be. I mean, I haven't looked at the Rams. I'm going to look at the Rams tonight and see where they're at.
Some Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I know damn good and well they're going to be challenged against Philadelphia's front. They've got to find a way to have a really good game against the Rams and get that continuity you're talking about, but get some confidence. Get some confidence that, when they make a call and they combo block and they work to the second level and guys are blocked. Hell, some of the best blocks they made the other day in that game were a block from Turpin getting inside on a running play, him getting up on a linebacker and getting a block. They just have not been as consistent as we'd like to believe, and maybe it's time on task is what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, and like I said, are they going to be perfect? No, not without work. It's not going to just be, they're going to get to perfection just by working together.
We all acted like wave a wand. We acted like, just throw the magic fairy dust out there and everything's going to be okay. It's really not.
Here's what I will say though. If they play the next 4 games together without injury, they're able to keep this unit together for 6 weeks. Here's what I'll guarantee. Just them playing together for 6 weeks, they will be better than they are right now. Just that's natural. So that's why something that I don't even know that are they going to be, I don't know that we can assume they're good. I think you can definitely say they will be better just by playing together for an extended period of time because the communication is going to get better, and that's going to clean up some issues right there.
The thing I worry about a little bit is Tyler Smith playing guard because he looked far better as a tackle. I know the last couple of weeks, I think the New England game he played really well, but the San Francisco game and last week he wasn't great.
New England and Arizona, he was really great. Other than that, he's had some struggles.
I thought Biotish was kind of nicked up. He's not. He's just there's some guys that have had some regression. I think that maybe Terrence Steele has had a little regression. And I don't know. I don't know.
No,
if it's
I think Steele's. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the line coach. I'm just saying the guys that they thought were going to be next level players, Tyler Smith, Biotish, Steele, have all taken just a little bit of a half step to a step back.
Something to monitor. But I do think that them playing together alone, Brian, I do think that will naturally make things better. Will it make it good necessarily? Not necessarily, but it will improve it.
It will improve.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brian trying to throw cold water on this offensive line.
No.
I know.
If they're going to get where they need to be, that offensive line has got to get together.
100%.
There's no question.
Yeah, especially with all the.
They could be okay, and Dak could make up for a lot of the problems they have, and CD can make up for a lot of the problems. But they need to find a way to be more consistent running the football. They really, really do need to get that squared away.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what Mike McCarthy had told us all along he wanted to do. It is now time for the Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. It's where we turn things over to you guys and let you ask some of the questions. Let's start off here with a question from Matt. He says, almost every time Kevontae Turpin has touched the ball this season, good things have happened.
Yes.
In what ways do you think the Cowboys can get creative to get him the ball more? Could having him and Cooks on the field at the same time pose problems for defenses with their speed?
Like it. I like.
You're all for that?
Yeah, I like what Matt's doing there because he's absolutely right. The one thing in the second half, we talked about it last year at the bye. Could you find ways to get Turpin the ball more? They just never did. I'm not just talking about jet sweeps, but his ability to catch the ball down the field. We saw it. Great pass great route, bring him in motion, bunch formation, boom. He runs the corner or he runs the nickel up the field. It's the best play they had in the San Francisco game. He makes a great adjusting catch. This kid is just not a jet sweep guy. Find ways to get the ball. Once again, we saw them put him in the backfield and toss him the ball, and then him get to the outside in a hurry, just downhill really quick.
Yep.
They need to create opportunities, and it just doesn't have to be screens. It could be bunches, scatter, drag him, pick guys. Let him come across. Try and pick his guy if you're playing man coverage against him. Get him in the space so he can get the ball. I totally agree with you, Matt. Great observation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Turpin has been impressive. Now, the biggest thing Turpin's going to
have... He's been damn good. He's been better.
You mentioned the block. It's not just the stuff that he's done with the ball.
Yes, absolutely. He's become a little bit of a complete player.
I will say the one thing he always has to guard against.
Fumbling.
He gets a little careless with that football.
He does. He will try really hard to get an extra yard or two and fumble.
He's going to have to protect the football a little bit better. Next question here from Mr. Slinky 3. This is not General Slinky like the last time where you were Mr. Hotkeys or
did you
whoever it was.
You never played with Slinky as a kid, did you?
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. I used to put it on the steps. I used to do that.
Okay, you know what a Slinky is.
Yeah.
I thought you were just BS.
Please. No, the steel ones. I always loved them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He's asking who needs to take the next step for the Cowboys to go deep in the playoffs. So, Brian, if I said there's one person on this roster, you just get to pick one. You get to make that player reach their full potential outside of the quarterback. That's too easy. You get to make that one player reach their full potential. Who most impacts the Cowboys' chances in the playoffs if you do that?
Damone Clark.
It's a good answer. Yeah.
They need Damone Clark because what's going to happen is Leighton Vander Esch is going to be gone for a little bit. Maybe 2 more games, 3 more games, maybe.
Yeah.
Damone Clark played well against the Chargers, but they're going to need him to be a 10 to 12 tackle guy every week. He's got to be a guy that doesn't get fooled on plays, reads his keys, gets downhill, maybe a tackle for a loss. Those are the things that Leighton Vander Esch was really, really good at. Knifing through there, blitzing when he had to, tackle a guy, it's a gain of 4, tackle him right there, it's a gain of 4, that's it. Not a gain of past the 4 that goes to 12 or 15. tackle well, read your keys, play downhill. They're going to, if this defense is going to be, and you could say, hell, you could say this too. You could say Donovan Wilson's name too. If this defense is going to be, this defense is going to be where it needs to be, you're going to have Donovan Wilson. Tyler Biadasz is another one to me. You got to be better in the center than you have been. I mean, the center of the offense, because they're going to have to run the ball. Maybe Pollard's going to have to be better. I mean, there's so many guys you can name, but the number one guy on my list is Damone Clark, because he needs to take over where Van Der Esch has vacated.
I think Clark's a really good answer. I think Gilmore, if you could get the most out of Gilmore as possible, that would be
Lewis.
Big. Lewis would be huge. I mean, you mentioned the safeties already.
Yeah.
You could pick Biadasz, you could pick Steele. You can pick Tyron. I mean, honestly, there are a number of different ways you can go there. I do like the pick of Clark, though, especially because of how thin they are there.
Yeah.
Next question here from John. As the team stands now, do you believe the Cowboys are good enough to beat the Eagles twice this season or even once?
Once.
I agree. Here's the thing. I think this happens all the time. We get the flavor of the week. I'm guilty of it. Yeah. I see the Bills win 3 straight games by 28 points, including whoop up on the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I go, Buffalo might be the best team in football. They might be the only team to challenge San Francisco.
Yep.
And then you see them just spiral the next 3 weeks.
Yep.
We see San Francisco lose 2 games in a row that we're now obviously no Debo, no Trent, but injuries happen in this league. You still need to win football games. They've not been impressive the last 2 weeks. We had some people asking, like, could they be one of these like all-time teams? They're really, really good. And now we're kind of going back on that. I will say, I'm not going to be so quick to forget what I've seen from Philly through the first 6 weeks of the year. They're a good right, but I mean the first 6 before that game against Miami.
I got you.
Miami was a really impressive. That is the best football game the Eagles have played this year, and they did it against a really good football team. They were really impressive. That's a scary team. The Eagles on that day were beating the Cowboys probably 100 times out of 100. They were that good.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. I've also seen that team struggle in ways against the Jets that the Cowboys didn't. I've seen that team struggle against the Patriots in ways that the Cowboys didn't. They've had some trouble. The Vikings gave them a lot of problems early on in the season. So I think Philly's good. I've probably underrated them throughout the year, but I also think Philly is not as good as they were this time last year. Maybe they reach it. Maybe they get to that point. Byard, like we mentioned earlier, is a really good player. But I think there's a little bit of there might be prisoner of the moment sentiment if you're like, can they even beat them once? Dallas can absolutely beat them once. They can beat them twice. I think they will split.
Yeah, the thing, I think if you're going to catch Philly, and it would be great if you could catch them at home, but if you could catch them with, it appears that Donovan McNabb, that Jalen Hurts is nicked up. Yep. If he's dealing with this knee injury and it's something that gets progressively worse when you play them here in 2 weeks, that will surely help your causes. You need to make him play backwards. Don't let him play forward. Make him play backwards. And if he's compromised with his mobility because of a little bit of a knee thing he's dealing with, that can only help the Cowboys. Capable of beating them twice? Sure. Likely? No. But if you could take this one at Philadelphia here in a couple weeks, that would be huge going forward. You don't need the former scout to tell you that. You would know that yourself.
Yeah, what would that be? Let me look at that game. Is November 5th, correct? Yeah, November 5th. Mm-hmm. November 5th, and you know what November 4th could potentially be. Now, we'll know the outcome by the time.
Was that the final game between the Phillies
that could be
and the
game
Rangers?
7 between the Phillies and the Rangers. If it's the Phillies, I haven't even looked to see a score update while we've been recording. We're recording here as the game got started.
I'm hoping for Arizona. That's my team.
But it is something where, if the Rangers happen to pull off a game 7 victory over the Phillies, you are not going to want to be dressed in Cowboys gear the very next day for an Eagles game. I will say
1-1 in the bottom of the 4th.
Boom. There we go. All right. And Chris Mad Dog Russo said if the D-backs win tonight, he's retiring. So just that's on the line as well. Last question here from Chris Hodnett, one of our loyal listeners. Brian Broaddus, as it is Halloween coming up upon us, what is your favorite trick-or-treat candy?
I am not a big fan of Halloween at all. I'm really not.
What candy then? What's your favorite candy?
I love slightly chilled Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, that's good. I like Reese's Pieces too.
Yeah, make them slightly chilled, and I'm good to go.
You know what and I don't know when this happened. This was about 2-3 years ago. I discovered I have like a real obsession with caramel, not caramel, caramel.
Like a Heath bar?
Like no, not that kind. Like I mean, like I love like sugar babies and like it's not caramel, but I love bit of honey. That's really good. I love salted caramel, like dark chocolate with salted caramel inside. Oh, that I don't know what it is. Caramel's become an obsession for me in the last couple of years. But the top candy for me is probably I like the chocolate peanut butter thing. Reese's Fast Break, the little candy bar.
Yeah, Reese's is good, but I'll tell you another one real quick too. Is the Nestle Crunch bar, with the peanuts and that's
the Mr. Good bar.
Not the Mr. Good bar, but the Crunch.
Mr. Good bar is the peanuts. The Crunch is the Rice Krispie.
The red, white, and blue. Yeah, the Mr. Good bar is a yellow wrapper. The Crunch is a red, white, and blue wrapper.
What's the difference between a Crunch bar and a Crackle?
It's kind of the
same one.
Peanut. It's a little bit more snap to it.
I guess so.
A little more snap in the crack.
That's what it is. All right. So if Brian Broaddus is coming trick or treating by your house, be sure to put lots of Crunch bars in there and chilled peanut butter cups. Brian, we left a lot on the table. We still got Michael Gallup to get to. We've got the Browns and the 49ers. Takeaways from that. We got to preview the Rams this week. So we'll have two more episodes
shows this week. We're back to it, man. To the end we go.
To the moon.
No days off.
No days off.
By day.
Days all off. Gas, no brakes. You keep chanting it, Brian.
Yeah.
For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.